So I think parents have had a number of questions regarding big picture and what that means for the post-secondary planning process. So the questions might be, are they going to get the kind of training and skills they need in order to be successful at college? It might be, what are schools going to think about when they see my student doesn't have any grades in the traditional sense? What will the transcript look like? So when parents ask me about what kind of preparation will students get in terms of for college, in terms of their ability to be successful at a college setting, we talk a lot about the difference between content and skills. And what I mean by that is the difference between knowing what's in a chemistry class versus knowing how to advocate for themselves, how to initiate for themselves, how to gather information independently, because so much more of what's expected from you at a college level is the ability to function independently, to seek out the skills in terms of writing a paper, in terms of research, in terms of managing your time independently, all those kinds of skills that students in big picture, I think, in some ways can develop more readily than some students do in a traditional classroom where it's sort of a question-response environment. So in that way, I think students can be very prepared. Certainly, we need to be conscious of where are they in terms of their math skills. Are they reading and writing regularly? And so one of the goals of being in the program is that students are also taking college-level classes while they're in the program to be practicing those skills on the college level and therefore able to demonstrate that for colleges. Another question has to do with transcript, sort of how will schools know what my child knows and can do. And we've certainly designed a transcript that is proficiency-based, but not only indicates what set of skills they had, but how they went about demonstrating that in the context of the program. And in my conversations with a number of local colleges as we prepared to roll out that transcript, I think we've met a lot of what their requests were in terms of what they would need to see to determine whether a student would be able to succeed in their school, which is their biggest question. In terms of grades versus not grades, certainly we have students who are very wise, who are in this school, and who are very smart in this school, and who feel not very connected to the work they're doing. And sometimes their grades reflect that. And so it's also true that grading from Algebra 1 in our school to Algebra 1 at a different school, the content may be different, the grading may be different. So post-secondary institutions know that even the traditional transcript is not necessarily a great predictor of success. And so I think there's much more of an openness to finding other ways to document what students know and can do. One of the things that I think a lot about is how few students graduate in 6 years in college these days, even within 6 years, I say. And I think that's a lot because students go to college not knowing what they want to study, but they go to college because that's just the next step. And I think one of the things that happens in big picture is students get a clear sense of what it is they want to be pursuing and why they want to be pursuing that. And I imagine that as we begin to look at the graduation rates of those students who leave big picture and go on, that we may see a higher percentage of four-year grads who don't switch their majors while they're in school, but who have a much clearer sense of their mission and their purpose and their reason for taking all that time and money to pursue a degree beyond high school. I guess one of the things that I think about in terms of big picture and post-secondary planning is I think there are some students who come into high school and find themselves basically withering on the vine. They're bright, interesting, smart students who just don't feel connected to their learning. And I think when learning becomes disconnected from the everyday experience of education, students become disengaged. And I think that's one of the reasons we see students going on to college and not doing well, because they don't really get it. They don't really know why they're there. And I think when we can have students take charge of their education and be excited about learning and want to be working at night and want to be working on the weekends because they're excited about their projects, that's what we want for our kids. That's what we want for all our kids, is that they be excited about taking charge of their learning and believing that they can have power in their lives. So I had the opportunity to, or I invited some directors of admissions from local colleges to get together and to have a dialogue about what is it they need to see, what is it they want students to be able to do in order to be successful on campuses. And we had a conversation about what does it mean to take chemistry at one school versus another, or algebra at one school versus another. And there was agreement that what it means at one school isn't necessarily what it means at another. And so we talked about what are the skills they would like to see. What is it that they want to know student? They want to know, for example, a student knows how to do a research paper, that they understand what scientific process looks like. They want to know that they can do some levels of math, that they can read and write, that they can function independently, that they can set up a plan and carry it out. And if we can find ways to document those for schools, I think they're going to be, at least the schools I talk to, be very pleased to have that kind of student on the campus. There certainly is plenty of talk in our culture right now, and we hear politicians saying things like everyone should go to a four-year college. And in fact, that simply isn't true. That in certain careers, and for certain careers, a college education is very, very important. Whether that has to happen right out of high school is a whole other subject for discussion. And one of the great things I think about a place like Big Picture is students really get a chance to take charge of their education and give some really concrete thinking to their future and some really thoughtful, reflective thinking about what is it they want to be learning and why do they want to be learning that and what training do they need to get to the next phase of their life. So if we can get people fired up about learning and we can get them to think and to take charge of that process and we can get them excited about the next part of their lives, then I think we've done a lot to help them become the people they want to be.